this is part one of my new podcast series called Illumine The Liminal. It's quite a tongue twister, or some would even say you could use this for a drinking game or something. Say it three
Mm.
times and if you don't get it right. So, just briefly to explain why the name Illumine The Liminal. I guess I've always had a thing for threshold. For me, I feel, especially the times we're in, the liminality, the threshold of permanent change, deepest transformation through, yeah, the times that we are in. So illumining this part is we're shining the light. We're bringing in the light. We're bringing in the inspiration from above, from below. So this is how I came up with the name of the podcast. And it is all about, yeah, having guest speakers like my beautiful first speaker today, which the astrologer Gray Crawford, live from America, from Portland. So thanks so much. Hi, Gray. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, hi Sydney. I'm very honored to be your first guest here, and I really love the title and all the subject and talking about this threshold time that we're in right now.
Thank you, Gray. And so yeah, Gray and we've met in 2019, it was, I believe,
Mhm.
it was at
Yeah.
A NORWAC conference. And
Hmm.
so Gray is a presenter. You've been a presenter for many, many years at the Northwest Conference called NORWAC in Seattle, the United Astrology Conference, the UAC. You're part of the International Society of Astrology, Astrological Research, Kepler University or Kepler College.
Kepler
You
College. Yeah.
Kepler College, you've been in, however, uncountable podcasts, and you teach a lot. You have your Patreon where you
Hmm.
do, yeah, your fixed star courses and seminars. Yeah, you've been very engaged with astrology, also mythologically, poetically. And that was the main thing when I met you in 2019 and participated in some of your lectures. I was just, yeah, mesmerized by, yeah, how you work with astrology and bring it down to earth from that mythical, poetic perspective. And so, yeah, so thanks so much for
Yeah.
being
Thank you.
here.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'd love to, so for our viewers and everyone that's watching, yeah, if well, yeah, I'd love to hear how did you get into astrology and the beautiful mythological archetypal approach that you how you see the lens of astrology for you.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, with astrology, I feel like some people feel more intuitively drawn to it, and there's other astrology you'll meet that are very skeptical, and they'll often have a story of being very skeptical about astrology, and then they want to start proving it wrong, and then they realize it really works. So I wasn't really totally skeptical. I'm somebody that, for whatever reason, it always just intuitively made sense to me growing up when I would hear about astrology and there'd be some kind of correlation between the planets and these cycles and what's going on. It just sort of made sense to me that there'd be something there. I'm someone also, like, when I first heard about like Chinese medical theories, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Or when I went into university and was hearing about C.G. Jung's work right away, I was like, oh, that makes sense to me too. Just I sort of just have a somewhat of a natural propensity in all those types of directions and divination types of things as well, even though I didn't really grow up with that being in my environment. And all I really knew at first was sun sign astrology. So, like a lot of people, I just would hear about sun signs. And I think because I'm extremely Pisces, my sun is in Pisces, my Jupiter is in Pisces, my Mercury is in Pisces, my midheaven's in Pisces. And I'm Gemini rising with a Gemini moon. So the Mercury rules like really important things in my chart in Pisces. So I could like recognize things about some of those general sun sign astrology concepts about Pisces. Like some of that would make a lot of sense to me. And then when it wasn't, I didn't actually, because I never met an astrologer and I never actually had met anyone that actually knows anything about astrology. It wasn't really until around the time my second Jupiter return, when I was like maybe 23, maybe I was 22, 23, that actually there's this woman where I went to university. She owned the like a health food, organic kind of food and supplement, like a health store, holistic type of health store in the
Yeah.
little town there. And one day we were just casually talking about astrology, and she was like, "Well, what's your moon sign?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Well, there's like you have a whole chart." And just hearing that again, I don't know why, but it just like intuitively, like it just like clicked, like, "Oh, that makes so much sense." And then I just wanted to get a book to figure it out, and then it never stopped. And it was in that general time period as well that I was getting increasingly into mythology. And so that was just two different things I was really interested in at the same time. And then I was really inspired when I first came across the book by Demetra George, Asteroid Goddesses, for example, where she was just bringing in a lot of these myths and combining them with like the names of different asteroids. And I would come across other astrologers doing that. So I just very naturally started doing that, connecting those in my mind. And still to this day, yeah, I find it really powerful just working with the symbolism of mythology and those types of dynamics we can find in mythology and all these ancient stories that really shape meaning for people. And then how can that help us inform and understand astrological dynamics, essentially?
Yeah, thank you. It's such a beautiful poetic way, isn't it, of bringing meaning and purpose, bringing the sacredness into the mundane. And
Hmm.
really, I feel as humans, we are the midpoint between the heavens and the earth, and how can we not see the beauty, the greater picture of everything, rather than yeah, the seeing astrology as, yeah, you got this and that planet in a sign in this house, and this is the meaning. Mythology really, I feel, brings it alive, brings also the work with the archetypes, the psychological urges, and also, as you mentioned, Carl Jung was a great astrologer as well, and it makes so much sense to work with someone as a psychiatrist or psychologist, and mapping their chart, and seeing what um yeah, people's, yeah, the psychological side of things, and the symbolism that unfolds. And so I really love that as well. And as you know, I studied with Brian Clark, whom I think you know quite well
Yeah,
also.
I
And
don't know him personally, but he's one
mm,
of my favorite astrologers. Is just as
yeah.
far as like a
Mm.
author and speaker that I've been inspired by.
Yeah, yeah. And I was also obviously, yeah, drawn to his way, and also very much into Carl Jung and dream work. And I've seen you just recently did an interview with Will Morris about
Mm,
his latest book on dreams. And um, so yeah, I just love that. And I feel also, as a humanity and where we are heading, there is, I feel also with current astrology, and with the North Node in Pisces, which is, yeah, that phase is coming, fading out soon. But I feel we've been really invited to bringing in more the imagination, the sacredness, and whilst of course embracing our physicality, there is, yeah, it's just so relevant. And
mm.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm,
And with
mm,
even with the name of your podcast and what you're wanting to explore here, that's a thing where I really feel the
mm,
mythological perspective can really help with the astrological perspective because even if you're not into myth,
Mm.
or if you weren't into astrology, I think you would still feel collectively somewhere you would realize we're at this liminal
Yes.
threshold right now, that we are in
Yeah.
this great time of collective change and quickening, and in between where we've been and something, the way things have been is over, and we're leaving that behind, and something else is coming in. And so that's a place where all the many myths of liminality and thresholds can be really helpful. And we also see many astrological symbols at work that are also involved that speak to this as well. And I know one of the ones you wanted to talk about was Chiron coming
That's
into
it.
Taurus, and
Mm.
Chiron is really one of the ultimate liminal archetypes in mythology, as well
Yeah.
as just very strange astrological body that even
Yeah.
within the system of astrology really is a was a discovery that really changed the way we look at the solar system. And so many other centaurs and other things have been, discovered since that time.
Yeah, yeah, so true. And so if you like, I'm just gonna share a current astrology chart just to have a look where Chiron is at the moment.
That's
And
great. Yeah.
so I hope we can all see that. Um, so that's today's date. You can see that, Gray, is that all right?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Um, so where are we? I also have some asteroids in here, and so Chiron being at the last couple of degrees of Aries at the moment, hey.
Hmm.
So that's already, I feel, showing us and an urgency of the times that we are in. And as you said, particularly with Chiron, for as a collective sense of that transformation and the wound that Chiron shows us, that primordial wound of the split between um, spirit and matter. And now I feel that Chiron for the first time is entering Taurus and coming to that Chiron return after. So as Chiron was discovered at the 3-degree point of Taurus, and so this year we're already getting that flavor of, yeah, that mythological figure and we all have Chiron somewhere, of course, and we all are born with, yeah, Chiron in whatever sign we are born with. So yeah, do you feel elaborating a bit on
Well, it is
Chiron
pretty.
moving into, yeah.
Yeah, I love the
Mm,
fact that you and I are talking right now with Mars and Chiron coming together. And as you're showing here, even the moon's on its way too. So the moon will be
yeah.
coming in too. But just Chiron's been in the sign of Aries, which is the exaltation of the sun. And that's definitely something I think that's
Mm,
important about Chiron and Aries and the mythology of Chiron. But it is also the home of Mars, which is really also very relevant to the mythology of Chiron. So it's quite
yeah.
powerful that right now Mars is coming to meet Chiron,
Yeah.
and we're about to have a new moon in Taurus, and that's
Mm,
where Chiron's going to be. Chiron's been in Aries, I believe, since 2018.
yeah, that's right. Yes.
That's when it first went in for a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. Kind of like
Yeah.
this year, we're going to have Chiron and Taurus for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one thing about
Mm,
Chiron and Aries, just to speak a little bit about some of that mythology, is you mentioned
mm,
like the alienation of Chiron. He's born from the union of Kronos, or who is the Greek version of Saturn, essentially,
yeah.
and a nymph, like a
Yes.
water nymph. And he is, and they had, his father Kronos had taken the form of a horse,
Yeah.
and he is rejected he's born half human, half horse. And instead of
Yeah.
that human animal combination being accepted and revered and honored, he is rejected by his parents. But he is then raised by Apollo and Artemis, so the sun and the moon. And so Aries is that exaltation of the sun. And something that's important about going into Taurus and is Taurus is the
Yeah.
exaltation of the moon. So these are like this transition from Aries to Taurus. We can also think about like his foster father Apollo and what Apollo brings to Chiron in Aries, and then his foster mother Artemis, the moon, who's associated with the moon, and Taurus being the exaltation of the moon. Among other things, Apollo is said to have brought things like because Apollo is a god who is associated with healing and divination and
Yes.
all of these oracular arts as well. Both Artemis and Apollo are also good with like hunting and things like that. So he learned all these incredible healing skills and had this holistic awareness of the intersection between the spiritual and the physical. And then, as part of his wounding of being rejected by his parents, he
Yeah.
then becomes the foster father for all of these and mentor of all of these heroes that are
Mm-hmm.
brought to him. Some, like Asclepius, it's more of a healing mentorship, but many of them are very much like Mars figures, like these people that grow up to be these heroic warriors who are brought and trained and mentored by
Mm-hmm.
Chiron. So there's also an interesting
Yeah.
connection there with Mars and Aries. And so, yeah, it's pretty neat that they're coming together right now. And I do agree with you. It's incredibly significant that Chiron's about to go into Taurus. And next year, about a year from now
Mm,
in June, Chiron will get back to that exact degree where it was discovered because
yeah.
Chiron was discovered in 1977. So, up as we're talking right
Mm,
now, we haven't yet quite had Chiron make a full circuit around the zodiac. So,
that's
for
right.
Chiron to finally get all the way around, you would think on some level we need that to happen, to get the full picture of Chiron. So,
True.
we're about to get the first actual Chiron return of Chiron, the body
I
itself.
know.
So that's very
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing the mythology. And it's so relevant. I find the wound, and I feel so many of us we can we resonate with that, a sense of not belonging, being different, being the outcast, or a sense of that separation of yeah, of that core wounding. And I feel like with Chiron, as you say, yeah, this year moving into Taurus, and yeah, we can really feel also the changes in nature, Mother Earth. There is so many um alignments I feel that are happening already, and I feel like also economically we have with Taurus, we're looking at our maybe our learning more to be self-sustainable, to live more and to live more simply. I feel with Taurus, there's also simplicity that's maybe required, and a deeper connection with Earth, with our physicality. I feel there is, yeah, and it's almost like where we are right now astrologically, with so much with Mars in Aries at those last degree points, and Chiron, the moon is there right now, and I feel it's almost like a burning away of the old debris in some way, preparing us for what's to come, almost like a purification stage that it might, like, for example, I've had this head cold and fever, and I felt, whoa, is it sort of burning away anything that's no longer serving me on a metaphorically, and also as a preparation for, um, stepping more into our embodiment, who we truly are, and bringing together our wholeness and acknowledging, because I feel Chiron is a lot about that wound. To In order to heal it, we need to feel it and acknowledge the
Hmm.
wound. And there's also certain vulnerability with Chiron. I feel Chiron means also to be vulnerable. I think in Latin it's vulnerare, the wound that is opening up for us to look at it and acknowledge it, and that's how we can heal it. And I feel it requires a certain vulnerability also to be in this physical reality, to be with Mother Nature. And yeah, I feel there's something about that Chiron and Taurus is going to teach us about, to treat humbly and vulnerably, but also strongly empowered in this physical form. And yeah, um, so I'm excited about Chiron coming back to that degree point of discovery for us as humanity, to yeah, for greater empowerment, and maybe even stepping into our whatever superpowers as humans. And
Mm.
yeah, I feel excited about it. And
Yeah,
um
absolutely.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you on all of that. I think um, what I think Chiron and Taurus, the that transit that is coming, it definitely really speaks to what is going to be required of all of us, you know,
Yeah.
in humanity, um, to be
Yeah.
really working through. Um,
Yeah.
Partially, one of the things, it's not it makes a lot of sense that with current events, as you and I are talking right now, there is this great global economic crisis that's
Hmm.
just looming on the horizon, and it's already striking many places. And some of this involves oil and fuel supplies, some of it involves like fertilizer, which can end up leading
Hmm.
into food supplies, right? And in some places people are already being impacted.
Hmm.
In other places, it's more like already some impact, but it could get much more severe. And we don't, right now, as you and I are talking, even fully know the scope of where all of it could go.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we are getting this massive technological advancement in so many ways, and things like AI technology coming in and all these big data centers and all these
Yeah.
other ways that could end up it already is disrupting things, but we know we're just getting started with the ways all of that is going to disrupt things. And with Uranus and Gemini, which is a recent shift, now we've got
Yeah.
Uranus and Gemini. There
Yes.
was definitely something interesting about Uranus and Taurus basically preparing the ground, like Uranus and Taurus
Hmm.
breaking up and disrupting and catalyzing all these things for Chiron to follow through, which we also experienced that with Aries. We had Uranus go through Aries first, and then right as Uranus was leaving Aries to go into Taurus, Chiron started coming into Aries. So
Yeah.
they're in a little pattern here of
Hmm.
following each other, even though you and I and most people born in our general generation have them in opposite signs. There's like a big group of us that all have them basically, and some people have them in very close
Hmm.
opposition. Some it's a little bit wider. But the one of the things when just doing research, going back to so the earliest I've really looked at intensely with Chiron and Taurus research is like the 1779 to 1783 period. That was like the period of the
Hmm.
American Revolution. After that, there was an 1828 to 1834, then an 1876 to 1883, 1928 to 1934,
Hmm.
1977 to 1983. And one thing that goes across all of these is there's definitely big economic disruptions. I mean, the thing that's called like the Great Depression comes in with
Yeah.
Chiron and Taurus. lots of
Mm,
industrial expansion, bank conflicts. A really interesting one in 1882, during that transit of Chiron and Taurus, there was a Saturn Neptune conjunction that year, just like we
mm,
had this year. But in
mm-hmm.
1882, Saturn and Neptune had a conjunction in Taurus, not too far from Chiron. Chiron was about 6 degrees ahead of them.
Wow.
And now this year we had Chiron sort of at the end of Aries and
Mm-hmm.
Saturn and Neptune coming together in the beginning of Aries, but they
Mm-hmm.
were still in the same sign. In
Mm-hmm.
1882, they were in the same sign, but a little bit closer in Taurus. And that time period is known for like the dawning of the electrical age when Thomas Edison's electric company like lights up a city block, a whole
Yeah.
section of a city having electric lights all of a sudden. And
Wow.
if we think about Chiron and Taurus with like the human body and our relationship to night and darkness and just our somatic experience and how that was forever changed by electricity and having electrical lights and always turning that on, right? And it completely changed us forever, our
Yeah.
relationship to really everything, our own creative
Mm.
processes, our own internal processes, our relationship to dreaming and rhythms. And I think there's something about that example too, in addition to the often economic disruptions and economic
Yeah.
hardships that for some reason line up with Chiron and Taurus, that big change and whatever's going on now with AI and all these screens and all this
I
information
know.
overload we're dealing with, that's obviously, we can tell that's another big theme that's up right now.
Yeah.
So, one thing we often see with Chiron and Taurus is people then trying to mediate this, and whether in some cases it is like labor movements coming in or people trying to organize to do something about the big economic disparities, because also with that there can often be periods of great economic disparities. In that same 1882 period I was just mentioning of Saturn, Neptune,
Mm-hmm.
and Chiron and Taurus, that was like in America they call that like the Gilded Age, and like the robber barons and all these huge corporations starting to
Mm-hmm.
form.
Mm-hmm.
So there's often like this back to nature, or they're finding the restoration of the soul within, like you're saying, like living more simply,
Yes.
having a spiritual renewal, like finding intelligence and the sacred intelligence and the sacred in nature and in the body and in spirit and in imagination, and trying to recover a sense of that. And I think that's obviously something that many of us are going to be going through. Like, we're going to have this big reckoning with not
Yes.
just all the major economic disruptions we're having and what's happening to the land, but also all this technology and how are we going to, deal with this. So Chiron and Taurus
Yeah.
is really such a perfect symbol to me
Mm.
of us collectively facing this right now.
Yeah. Thank you. I love that. And I'm getting goosebumps here because I feel also Chiron has been referred to as the rainbow bridge, the gap. So I feel, yeah, and it's such a, I feel the universe always conspires with us. And I feel this Chiron coming into Taurus, it's just so necessary where we are at, as you say, with all the new technologies. It feels like, yeah, Uranus in Gemini also until 2033, and Chiron will be in Taurus till 2033. So I feel Chiron also is that reminder that, yeah, to be more, as you say, back to nature, our own nature, to remember that we are this physical form and we are equal to nature, and to look after it, to look after our own vessel, our body. And so I feel it's really necessary, this Chiron coming into Taurus, to slow us down a bit, because I feel it almost feels like, even since Uranus went into Gemini not long ago, it feels like things have been speeding up, and there is,
Hmm.
yeah, there is this a lot more, almost like, yeah, calling us more outside of ourselves. And I feel this Chiron is giving us that sense, okay, hey, back to basics. And as you say, that spiritual renewal, the looking after nature, and so I feel it's just really necessary, and also that Chiron will be in Taurus at the same time as Uranus in Gemini. So it's really, they're really working together, and it's because Chiron is orbiting between Saturn and Uranus, right? It's that
Yeah.
that maverick movement. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, we should talk about, yeah,
mm,
that's you when you mentioned the Rainbow Bridge, that to me
yeah,
is one of the reasons why to think of that. Yeah, I mean, Chiron's a really strange, I think even now people aren't totally sure what Chiron even
yeah,
is.
I know.
You've heard sometimes if people are like, oh, is it like a comet? Is it
Mm,
like an asteroid? It actually, Chiron has like a ring or has rings, which
mm,
is really
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
What I'm aware of, I really love the work. In addition to Brian Clark, Melanie Reinhardt
yeah.
is somebody who's my favorite person speaking and researching Chiron, and who's brought material forward about Chiron and the rest of the centaurs. Because now
Mm,
Chiron was the first, but we found all these other objects, and it's just funny now they even call them centaurs because sort of
yeah.
like being this strange half human, half animal. It's not, we're like, what is this? What are these really? A lot of people think they come from the Kuiper belt. So that's an idea
Hmm.
that's out there that Chiron comes from the Kuiper belt, which I think is another rainbow bridge potential
Yeah. Hmm.
because that's like deep, right? Deep, the far reaches and possibly even elements of like the formation of our solar system are out there, right?
Yeah.
That's where Pluto is. Pluto's out there, and
Hmm.
Eris and all these other farther out bodies that have also been discovered since the time of Chiron. And one of the things I really love about Melanie Reinhardt's work is she talks about Chiron being an emissary or like a messenger from that Kuiper Belt region, where we could think of Pluto being like this lord of this Kuiper Belt. Pluto being this
Mm,
astrological symbol has so much to do with like the depths, like the ultimate deep, dark depths of who we are, where we also do find our power and empowerment. And in this way, Chiron's bringing this material into our systems. Melanie also talks a lot about Chiron being an ancestral mediator, being a body that can
mm,
connect us to our ancestors and ancestral patterns. I also feel that's very relevant.
mm,
And then, like you're saying, this really strange orbit, Chiron goes all the way out beyond the orbit, goes out to Uranus,
yeah.
and that's where basically when Chiron is in Aries, Chiron is more like out there in the farther reaches of its orbit out by Uranus, and then Chiron at another point of its orbit actually moves within the orbit of Saturn. So it
Hmm.
actually gets in between Saturn and Jupiter a little bit. So it's like weaving this like this Saturn realm of like all the traditional seven visible planets out to that Uranian realm beyond.
Yeah.
And in addition to the mythic symbolism of Chiron being this half human, half horse, mentor, healer, he's got his liminal cave where people are coming and he's nurturing them and taking them through their own rites of passages and their own
Yeah.
threshold experiences to find themselves. That astronomical symbolism is the other big key to me, that it comes from the Kuiper belt.
Yes.
We don't And it weaves us in between Saturn and Uranus and those archetypes in astrology, which have so much to do with, on one hand, this sort of consensus reality that we all
Mm,
agree on with our perceptions, which in many ways is one element of Saturn. And that's definitely something that's getting really shape shifted right now with Saturn and Neptune
yeah.
together. And then that shattering, that liberation, that breaking through to the other side of something, or opening up some new sense of freedom, or just breaking up
Mm,
sort of crystallized structures and patterns of Uranus. And Chiron being this real key mediator between us, and that's certainly something we're at a threshold, collective threshold moment, of experiencing that right now.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. You say it so beautifully. I love that. And yeah, it is that again, the liminality, the threshold that
Hmm.
Chiron highlights, I feel, and also being yeah, doing his maverick thing between Uranus and Saturn's orbits. And Uranus is reminding us of our own individuation. And I feel also that was part of what Chiron in Aries has been opening up for us since 2018, the Aries energy of the I amness. Who am I? And you mentioned it's also the relevance of ancestry. It's that I amness. Who am I? Yes, there is my ancestors, but it's sort of an invitation to be our own individual selves, to be that everything that comes with that yeah, I amness and authenticity, our sovereignty. And then Saturn is about being determined, dedicated. Again, now in the sign of Aries for the next about 2 years. Is it that Saturn is in Aries, maybe?
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so I feel there is this strong urge or invite for us to be our own unique, authentic selves. And um, yeah, and Chiron, the also you mentioned the word like shape shifting, and I feel like Chiron was also like the shaman, the
Hmm.
as you say,
Definitely.
yeah, that brought people to inviting them to the Temenos, that the temple where people would come and fast and invite the gods and goddesses for messages to come through. And so I feel like Chiron is that missing link, the key to yeah, connecting with our true nature. And and so I feel it's so very aligned that Chiron is moving into Taurus until 2033, and that already this year, yes, we're getting a flavor of that. But then from, I think, April 2027, we will be right in, yeah, Chiron's domain until 2033. And
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, so it's a
Yeah, the
beautiful.
shamanism is definitely interesting too, and there's certainly different cultures that practice that, and that term shamanism, I feel like also gets applied sometimes just to thinking about what our more ancient ancestors would have been like in these different cultures of really being connected to spirit and animals and with that type of ability to bridge these different realms or go on journeys and so forth. So that's definitely another key part of Chiron, and I think something that's very relevant to Taurus, with Taurus being the sign of Venus, this earth sign,
Mm,
the exaltation of the moon. So it's also got this very lunar connection. Is that sense of our body and our bodily instincts, our bodily intelligence, what we can journey to and discover within our own bodies and our own darkness within, and
yeah,
trusting that. And that also, there's something about that connects in with that when we do bring in the mythic Chiron and overlay that with this astronomical body, we have this half human, half horse. So there is something about this animal, instinctual
yeah,
horse body that is also
yeah,
there. That Chiron is also then Chiron of all the centaurs is said to be the most wise and
mm,
rational and intellectual. So there's also that whole body mind spirit connection, right? Is
yeah.
so powerful. And so
Mm.
that connection to all these themes of Taurus are going to be really important.
Yes.
I feel like when you're mentioning with Aries, I've thought that a similar thing to what you were describing, and I've also thought about it in terms of not just who we are, but our own agency in the world in the way of Aries wanting to strike out and initiate something, and what kind of actual agency do we feel we have to actually do that and go for or pursue what it is we really do desire to create, and that's something
Yeah.
that's I think we've been dealing with. And Taurus does
Mm.
make me think again, like we've been talking about the body, also our sense of values, our sense of in the way of especially Venus, what we value, what we're attracted to, what are the values and us and aesthetics that sort of underline what we want to bring together and attract, and what we are attracted to,
Mm.
and really coming into a stronger connection with that in the context of all this, you know, things are going to be moving so fast. And this
Yeah.
chart you have up here for when Chiron comes into Taurus in
Hmm.
late June, this is not
Yeah,
long before Jupiter goes into Leo.
that's
Once
right.
Jupiter goes into Leo and we get into July, things are going to be moving probably really fast because all these planetary alignments start coming in with
Mm.
Uranus and Gemini, Neptune and Aries, and Pluto and Aquarius, all making exact aspects. And then Jupiter and
Yeah.
Leo, they're all set up. And then Jupiter in Leo comes in to basically catalyze it all.
Hmm.
And so our first experience of Chiron and Taurus is going to be at this exact time of this really powerful configuration. This part here, too, early July, Mars
Yeah.
also activates it with Uranus. So it's likely a great volatility and instability
Yeah.
going on at this time. But we've
Hmm.
seen it over and over again. And there's
Mm.
definitely really interesting ways people in past periods of time have responded to these, great sweeping changes. Like somebody actually mentioned Will Morris, who's a
Yeah.
great astrologer, but there's also the
Mm.
famous artist and arts and craft movement figure William Morris, who
Okay. Yeah.
William Morris was born with Chiron and Taurus,
Okay.
and as in sort of the general time period that Chiron and Taurus was, he was part of like this arts and craft movement of really having all this focus back on crafts and building beautiful things.
Hmm.
And I've already been, and that came in sort of the general Chiron and Taurus time period. And I feel like I'm already noticing that with a lot of people wanting to get back into just taking whatever kind of whatever practices you can have that are just very embodied, like making things
Yeah.
by hand and cooking things that are slower processes, or all these like longer, you know what I mean, like very embodied, physical, very
Yes.
natural types of processes that are sort of a counterbalance to all of the extreme tech
Yeah.
changes happening right now.
Yeah. I love that. It's such a beautiful reminder, as you say, to keep us grounded and come back to, yeah, the true nature of everything. And Taurus loves to use all the senses and touch and feel and smell. And
Hmm.
so, and to, yeah, to really, yeah, dedication towards, yeah, our full embodiment. And as you say, in July, it certainly there is an intensity building. I mean, we can already feel it and sense it in the world, what's going on, and the Chiron in a square to Pluto and Jupiter and yeah, and as you say, with Uranus and Mars lining up, it's but yeah, it's I feel it's a beautiful invitation simultaneously to come back to what are my values, my worthiness, um, all the Venusian aspects. And I guess with Taurus also comes maybe my relationship to money. Maybe a lot of us
Mm-hmm.
are gonna change the ways we make money, we earn money, or how we, yeah, go for things, or maybe bartering or whatever. I think there is changes that are coming, but everything that's sort of bringing us back to our wholeness a lot more, and an authentic way of being. And also what I was thinking with, because as Chiron just moved through Aries, ruled by Mars, and then now in Taurus, ruled by Venus, I feel it's bringing us also more into alignment, healing maybe parts of a wounded, and it doesn't matter what gender we are or sexual orientation, but maybe bringing in a greater balance ultimately of our inner masculine, feminine, how we assert ourselves, how we go for what we want. And yeah, I like that we have the Venusian energy that is also slowing us down to truly, yeah, smell
Mm-hmm.
the flowers on the way, and as Chiron probably would pick flowers and in the meadows, and be very
Yeah.
present.
Definitely. Yeah, there's the current Taurus would be all these Chiron themes get brought into, right? This much slower moving,
Yeah,
inward, very
yeah.
receptive.
Mm.
Also, Taurus can be, it's fixed, so it can be a little stubborn, but
Yeah.
it's a sign that's been really activated with so much change by
Yes.
Uranus. But this is
Yes.
very different than Chiron and Aries, where, like we're saying, it's much more about assertion and,
Yeah.
it's fiery and it's fast and yeah, so it's very different
Mm.
quality of the sign.
Mm. Yeah, no, thank you, Gray. So I feel like this, yeah, it's definitely a very transformational year, this
Mm,
2026. And I still always feel, yes, there is turmoil in the world, and we can see, of course, when we look astrologically, whoa, this or that could be a time where there is um, greater stirrings inside and outside. And simultaneously, I also feel that everything in the universe always conspires with us. There is always an invitation towards, yeah, a greater sense of transformation, healing. And I feel again, this Chiron might help us to remind ourselves of that it's, yeah, that we are, yeah, we are it. There is also nothing outside of us. We can come back to ourselves, and
mm-hmm,
and into our humanness, and meet each
mm-hmm.
other in that humanity, and so yeah,
I
I'm
definitely
also,
think also
yeah.
anything
Mm,
embodied, like even with
yeah.
astrology, more of a
Mm,
um, embodied type of astrology. Actually, this
yeah.
past year, my friend Jason Hawley organized
Mm,
this first ever Living Astrologies conference,
mm,
and
yep.
that had all of these people practicing embodied astrology
Hmm.
workshops where there weren't any PowerPoint slides. It was not a virtually live streamed conference. You had to be there in person. There weren't electronic slides, or you're in a room with people doing more embodied work and practices
Right.
and things like that. And you could feel how a lot of people are just so excited to have that space. And I think not in that basic same idea, which, because astrology, it's sort of like an ultimate form of bridging all these things together, but people can get very mental with it.
Yes.
And so it could be like with any field you're talking about. I think any field you're into, this more embodied connection, bringing you into the body, and like we've been talking about, I think that's going to be something we're going to see. Did you want to
Yeah.
show the
Mm,
the discovery? I remember we had talked a little bit about
yeah.
showing the discovery chart,
Yeah,
or
let's have a look at that. Yeah, yeah. We'll bring that one up. Yeah, because Chiron was discovered on the 1st of November, 77. And I know that very well because that's my birth date, which is so
Yeah,
I
that is
have
amazing.
I have a thing for Chiron.
Yeah, you're such a perfect person to talk about
Talk
it. It's
Chiron.
amazing, yeah, that you're born on the same day that Chiron is discovered, and so you're gonna
Mm.
have your first exact Chiron return at the same time Chiron is
Yeah.
having their first Chiron
That's
return.
it. Yeah.
And that is something,
Yeah.
anybody that's born with Chiron and Taurus,
Mm.
it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Chiron's got, because of this weird orbit, Chiron has like a
Yes.
really strange cycle where most of Chiron's cycle you can't really apply across people because
Yes.
people will get the different squares and oppositions at dramatically different times because
Yeah.
some people have such a some people are like, if you're born with like Chiron and Libra, for example, it's moving like so fast. It's like in between
Mm.
Saturn and Jupiter. Whereas if you're born in
Yeah.
Chiron and Aries, like me, it takes a
Mm-hmm.
long time because Chiron's like out there. But we all get one thing
Mm.
that does line up is once we get to around the age of 50, Chiron does
Yeah.
come around full circle.
Yeah.
And that becomes this really critical midlife transit
Yes.
experience that we all experience. And it's
Mm.
obviously incredibly symbolic of that transition from the 40s
Yeah.
into the 50s. I have Chiron in Aries. Mine's a little bit
Mm.
back. It's like more like 23 Aries. So I'm still in the vicinity of it, but I've had the multiple exact Chiron return passes
Yeah.
already for myself. And it definitely is a really powerful time where, I mean, obviously, on one hand, you can think about just the meaning of Chiron for you coming full circle to really enhance and take that to the next level. But I think it has so much to do also with this transition of the 40s into the 50s and who are we going to
Mm.
be in this whole next section of our lifetimes,
Yes.
and especially in this more authentic way in what we might have to share or do in the community. Sometimes it
Mm.
might be something that you've been working on for a while. So for like me with my astrological practice, that's definitely been one side of it. And then there also might be something coming in that's new or different. Like for me, I got to help actually my friend Jason Hawley
Mm.
facilitate. We led like a group of people going to sacred sites in Greece,
Oh.
including the sanctuary of Asclepius, one of the sons mentees of Chiron at
Mm.
Epidaurus. And that was such a powerful experience to be in the place of the gods and be in the land and go to the actual sites. And that definitely opened up this whole other side of perception
Mm.
and mind, body, spirit, right? Um,
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
Chiron type of way for me. And that was like, for me, that was like my exact Chiron return was happening then. So there can definitely be really
Mm.
powerful experiences. So you'll be experiencing
Mm.
this when
I know.
Chiron goes into Taurus, and so will
Yeah.
anybody else listening to this
Yes.
that has Chiron and Taurus. Like no
That's
matter where
it.
you have it in Taurus, like the journey begins once Chiron gets in there. Yeah.
That's it. That's it. I just casted a chart just with the date, the 1st of November,
Mm.
77. Just as a
You have a
as
sense of
a
where
rough
things were that
well,
day. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. And having Chiron at 3 degrees of Taurus opposite the sun in Scorpio, um, where I feel it also shows that there is a possible wounding, ancestral wounding happening here with the father archetype, a soul, maybe a soul wounding of the father, possibly there for Chiron. Um, And also,
with
yeah,
Kronos or Saturn
yeah,
having
yeah,
rejected him mythically.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah,
And then it's
yeah.
interesting. Then the foster father literally is the sun in
Yeah,
Apollo.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, also the Sun conjunct Uranus, so there's a great
Hmm.
spirited nature, like yeah, a great foresight and the yeah, healing, shamanic and with yeah, Venus and Libra, there's also this an eye for beauty and yeah, and interesting also in Chiron's chart, there is no Earth other than Chiron in Taurus. And I'm very aware of this because I share the same chart and that the only Earth is Chiron for me as an element and often I find, for example, like I always feel like when we have a missing element, we bring in that element in whatever it takes. And for me, like I always walk barefoot. I have to touch everything. I love cooking
Mm.
and I use my hands. I became a remedial therapist and doing a lot of body work. So I brought this element in through that. The yeah.
Don't you also do sound
Mm.
healing or things with
Yeah, that's
sound?
right, with sound. Yeah, yeah, sound healings and craniosacral therapy and so lots of different therapies that I've studied and um yeah,
Those are all
herbalism
extremely
and
Chiron. Yeah. How do you
yeah.
feel?
Mm.
What are some ways you've thought about yeah, just how what you notice when working with people, what starts happening with those types of processes often when they start work
Yeah.
when somebody maybe hasn't experienced those types of things before.
Yeah, so I also feel that I have a great sensitivity just through my hands. There is a I just feel a lot, even just massaging someone or doing craniosacral therapy and helping people like Chiron took them to the temples of Temenos. It's more yeah that being a guide for others, helping them to drop into their deep subconscious, acknowledging. And I've noticed more and more, yes, I started off like a massage therapist, but then I feel like I'm not here to pamper people. I love working with people, so people can feel inspired and empowered to bring in their own healing capacity. And I think that's what Chiron also stands for, to be self-empowered, to be on our own healing journey, acknowledging the shadows, acknowledging and really feeling it rather than and I feel in this modern world in our society there's this big happiness trap and we're always trying to opt out and oh, I'm not feeling good, I feel depressed, how can I feel happier sooner than later and like a quick fix. And I feel Chiron shows us,
Hmm.
particularly in Taurus, it doesn't need to be a quick fix. We got everything within, and that's where I feel my part or what I
Mm.
would love to work with people, whether it's body work or through astrology, to really, yeah, have people see their own abilities. And I think that's what Chiron is going to open up over the next years. That, yeah, it's great to have someone helping us, like a therapist or whatever, but we are doing the work if we can allow ourselves to be vulnerably engaged with what presents itself. And um, yeah, and that's how I feel. I love working more and more rather than yeah, pampering. So I stepped away from massaging quite a while ago, or still every now and again, but I feel there is yeah, a different kind of empowerment for people. And yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I love
Mm,
that. And if for you obviously and also anyone else listening
yes.
that is a practitioner really
Yeah.
in whatever your field is, but especially anybody that's doing
Mm,
like what you do, like if you're if you do craniosacral or
Mm,
sound healing or all these different
mm,
um, combining all these different things, especially you're also somebody that even combines in astrology as part of all of that. The Chiron return can really be a time of taking all that to the this next level of mastery or real
yeah.
big development, right? And so it makes sense too that you are born at on the day that Chiron is discovered, and you are initiating
Mm.
your podcast now as
That's
Chiron's about to
right.
go into Taurus, and we're talking about Chiron and Taurus on your first episode. So
Mm,
I really
thank
love
you.
how that all comes together with it. But
Yeah.
yeah, the what you said is really important about the self-empowerment of Chiron.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm,
I think of Chiron as you mentioned before, like being open to a vulnerability, and there's often a homeopathic type of
yes.
symbolism that gets linked into Chiron, where there is this degree of taking in the wound or feeling it, but not in a way that it's overpowering or shutting you down, but enough
Mm,
to give you something to work with and start
yeah.
shifting the story. And it's not even necessarily like it might be in certain cases be something that can't really ever be totally healed, or you can't really have a
Yes.
complete healing, but you can shift your relationship with it. You know, you can shift the story you're in as part of that. And I
Yeah.
agree with you that Chiron's ultimately looking to get us empowered. I feel like Chiron
Mm.
would stay with you as long as absolutely necessary, but
That's right.
wants you to go off. Like you're not supposed to stay in the cave
Yeah.
of Chiron forever getting the help. You know, you're supposed to just kind of, pass through and go through that rite of passage or that experience, and then, go off on the next part of
Mm,
your story. That also feels very relevant to me.
mm,
It occurs to me actually again, my friend Jason Holly, last year we taught a course together that was again like an experiential astrology course, which I
mm,
think earlier I used the term embodied astrology, but experiential astrology is more the specific term that he often uses. And we taught a class on what we were calling the twilight planets. Because if you may know in traditional astrology, if you're born during the day or the night, that's a way to sort of categorize stuff. And the day planets are the sun, Saturn, and Jupiter, and the night planets are the moon, Venus, and Mars. And Mercury can swing both ways. But
mm,
we put together this course around the idea of Mercury and Chiron, as well as the dwarf planets Ceres being these twilight planets
mm,
that help us mediate in between these states of day and night, and that sort of ability to mediate different dynamics, which would definitely go with being at these states of thresholds and great collective transitions like we're going through, and
yeah.
how whatever it is we're working with, like the symbol,
Mm,
whether that's in through astrology or whether that's in a dream or whether that's in a really particularly powerful synchronicity or just whatever else is going on in your life, how to really,
mm,
in that sort of twilight way. I think Chiron's also really part of that. And sometimes it is through a wounding type of experience or something getting kind of provoked about a old pattern that's been wounding with Chiron. But if you hold that tension and hold it and work with it, something else starts usually forming and changing. And there's a very alchemical transmutation type of process, right? That will often start happening as part of that.
mm,
And so there's likely, I mean, all of us in one way or another likely going through things like this, Chiron and Taurus people, it might be a little bit more of those core things. When you're talking too about like I really
Mm.
like what you said about not the get fixed really fast. That's
Yeah.
certainly not the Chiron way. Um, and what's interesting too is like so it's about a year from now in June of 2027. Um, I for in my location it's June 8th. It might be a little different in Australia, but it looked like around June 8th of 2027, around October 7th of 2027, and then around April
Mm.
6th of 2028,
Yeah.
like June 2027, October 2027, April 2028. Those are the times when this exact to the degree
Yes.
Chiron return is going to happen. So that
Mm-hmm.
is something where even collectively we're probably really getting even more of this experience. And as we these collective, as we're experiencing right now, there's such an unknown, there's so much uncertainty. There's
Mm-hmm.
so much, part of it is also with the Saturn, Neptune, Aries, right? People are losing trust in authorities, not knowing what to trust. So there's definitely something we know about trusting your body, trusting your own instincts, trusting
Mm-hmm.
yourself, as part of working through all this. But it's a huge collective rite of passage we're clearly going to be living through as Chiron gets his own return. So there's something just really
Mm.
fitting about that, and there's nothing easy. It's not going to be easy. It's not a quick fix.
Mm.
It's a big collective threshold rite of passage we're going through, but it's necessary for whatever reason. It's why we're here, right? To go through it, and it leads into like the following year. Then Saturn comes into Taurus, and June of 2028 we have Saturn and Taurus, Saturn
Yes.
and Chiron together in Taurus, and it's Saturn and Chiron
Mm.
together in Taurus square Pluto, which is the first
Mm.
square between Saturn and Pluto since they were together in 2020.
Mm.
So it's going to be a loaded opening section of this Chiron and Taurus transit where we're really interfacing with all of this. But like we've been
Yeah.
talking about, I really do find inspiration. I really liked how you were describing Chiron and Taurus, and I do think it's a very powerful symbol. On one hand, to be showing some of the wounding that we could be experiencing collectively, but also the hope that new things will be consolating and forming in response to the way things are changing in the world, and in many cases collapsing and falling apart, and we're
Mm.
what we're going to be forming and building and creating while that's all happening.
Yeah. No, beautifully said. And yeah, and I guess also with Pluto moving through Aquarius until 2044, we have that ongoing collapse of old hierarchies and top down and our
Hmm.
own conditioned ways of being and towards a greater, yeah, for the greatest good of all with the Aquarian nature and so I feel yeah we're doing it and again the more present we can be and yeah and knowing ourselves as nature and also looking after our bodies more and not to say to live a totally austere life and stay away from everything and all kinds of because also I think Chiron might bring up any kind of addictions as well. Um,
Mm.
we all have addictions of sorts. It's the human condition. We all there's yeah the sense of escape that's also that sense of Chiron that's triggered. I feel like I don't belong. I'm feeling that sense of separation and I think a lot of us we all have addictions in some ways so I think it's also
Mm.
to maybe look at that with compassion and it might also we might move through like a bit of a body cleanse or at least like more of an
Mm.
awareness okay what's good for my body what isn't And so I feel it's going to be like a very holistic process of um yeah, that transformation over the next many years. And it's not an easy journey all the time, of course, because it's we're talking about a core wound that is there. And um but I feel if we can, again, if we can be present with it and yeah, dedicated and committed to our journey to keep on going no matter what, and moving forwards. And yes, acknowledging there is a lot of new technologies, but then also maybe I feel any kind of earth elements always show us how to discern what's right for me, what's good, what's no longer, what and with Taurus, what do I like, what don't I like, what's serving me, what's according to my value system, what is no longer. So I think there's a lot of beauty in the Venusian process, I feel, to discern about and claiming that worthiness. The
Hmm.
Yeah, the Taurian, I'm worth it. We're all worth it. And um yeah, and embrace the all of it. And but yeah, it's gonna be
Yeah.
an
When
in
I was hmm.
yeah, is it?
I was gonna say when before we spoke, I looked in Melanie Reinhardt's book just to see what she was writing about Chiron and Taurus, and one thing she mentioned that kind of goes with what you were talking about was issues of self-worth and insecurity that can lead to like over attachment to material possessions for like security, but that can also be sometimes like addictions and different or just habitual things we're doing just to kind of
Yes.
fill up the space. So like that inner connection, if the more you can do that, that can really take the place of other patterns you might have that are just sort
Mm.
of um they're there because you don't want to look, you know, once you make that inner connection, it can really take care of
Yeah.
a lot of that and open up more of what that path is or purpose you have to be
Mm.
focused more on that. This time period
Mm.
though, where you have this chart, I was just realizing it's
Mm-hmm.
so close. It's such a wild time in 2028 because Venus is a retrograde and Mercury is a
Ah,
retrograde in
oh my
Gemini with
goodness.
Uranus. And if you go even just like a little bit before this, like the previous week, they all are they all come together as
Oh
um
my gosh.
as Saturn and Chiron are coming together. We're gonna have like Venus and Mercury in the heart of the sun, like forming conjunctions with
Wow.
the sun while retrograde, while Uranus is also there. And that's all happening at the same time. Saturn and Chiron are coming together for the first time in a long time, and then they're going to be having
Wow.
that square to Pluto. Yeah, so it's a very this looks like a big crucible of something where we're
Yes.
going through here. No, this is we're jumping 2 years ahead right now, but
Yeah.
um,
That's okay.
yeah,
Mm.
there's definitely some kind of opening of this Chiron story. That's something
Yes.
we get initiated into. But
Yeah.
again, yeah, I really love all the stuff you're saying. I think
Mm.
I'm really
Mm.
hopeful about too a lot of you know, reconnection to nature and animals, the world around
Yes.
us, plants, inner spirit, all sorts of maybe interesting
Mm.
new creative and artistic and
Yeah.
intellectual, philosophical, and focus on labor and you know, some of it might be even like facing tipping points, collective crisis tipping points of
Mm.
environmental or economic, you know, of such imbalances that it out of necessity, you know, demands these big responses
Yes.
and changes. So that's likely the
Mm.
kind of thing I think we can probably expect, right?
Yeah. Yeah, very
Yeah.
much. And for example, I'm part of a business as well. It's my partner's business. It's called Green Clean. And so we are
Okay.
also specialized in structuring water. to bring water to its optimal state as it was to come out of a spring. And we have different like old technologies from, you maybe have heard of Wilhelm Reich, orgone energy. And so we build orgone devices like they're called, we call them nature harmony stations. It's like the concept of a tree and you put them on the land. They're anchored, they're in a bucket with water, with anchored with a copper coil into the ground, and they create a torus field. Here you go, torus,
Oh,
differently
yeah.
spelled,
Wow.
a torus field to bring nature into greater harmony. And but anyway, I'm just saying, I think there could also be with Uranus and Gemini. Yes, there's a lot of AI and technologies, but maybe also bringing old technologies. I'm just thinking Tesla, yeah, Wilhelm Reich, Victor Schauberger, these technologies, bringing them back down to earth, and um so maybe there could be something about that as well, that beautiful
Absolutely.
harmony with nature, and um yeah, so it's, yeah, really big times. And but definitely before June 2028, I will certainly have you on another podcast. Maybe the 100th edition of Illumine the Liminal by then.
Nice. Yeah. That'd be wonderful. I didn't realize that about you with your partner. That makes a lot of sense. It's funny listening to you. It's like, wow, you can tell that you are somebody that was born on the day of Chiron's discovery. But
It's
that's really, I totally
mm,
agree with you about that's something that's already been going on in a lot of different fields and ways. But
mm,
yeah, something about what are some of even these ancient ways that can be brought forward again
yeah.
into now that can be part
Mm.
of addressing things going on.
Yeah, it's yeah, such powerful times. And also then I feel more and more people are coming to that awareness to do something for themselves and their families, maybe in bigger ways. It doesn't matter whether it's small or larger, but I feel there's quite an awakening for many people to yeah, to slow down and to
Hmm.
um yeah, look after nature, and so it's a beautiful thing. I feel that's gonna unfold more and more. And so yeah, yeah, thank you so much, Gray. I feel we've covered a bit with this
Yeah,
next month, Chiron moving into Taurus for the first time. And yeah, and what's to come, how we can maybe, yeah, navigate through. Because also with my podcast series, so my aim is to, yeah, have beautiful guests like you, Gray, and we talk about, yeah, that sense of self-empowerment, inspiring others, and how we can best navigate through times of threshold, and yeah, feel alive.
that's perfect. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
definitely, I'm excited that you're going to have this
Mm,
podcast. So people should
mm.
definitely subscribe and follow your channel and show here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.